All right, we're out here with Angus. It's his first day of puppy school, and he's hella stinking cute. He's the cutest little pug ever, and I'm super excited to have a pug in the program. I always say that pugs must be one of the best breeds of dogs because I never really get them in for training, and I know they're around, right? So anyway, we're super happy to have him. He's doing great. Socially, he's one of the most confident puppies I've seen in a long time. I would say that his play style is like just up in front and like, hello, I'm here, you know. And that could potentially be a problem with an older dog that he's unfamiliar with, because a lot of times adult dogs kind of take offense to that. So that's a typical puppy maneuver anyway. So he's here with dogs that will potentially correctly and not over the top correct him for that, and kind of teach him to have a little bit of give space and manners and not be like so like, hi, I'm Angus, and you're good. We're friends whether you like it or not. So he's gonna learn some manners in that sense. So we're gonna introduce some skills to him today that are super easy. I'm wondering if he knows sit just yet, but the first skill we'll talk about is something called food luring, which should be like a magnet to your puppy's nose. And this allows us to kind of manipulate where their bodies are physically. So that's helpful for teaching, sits and downs and heel and place and all the other things that we're going to teach him. So food luring is how we kind of acquire or shape new behaviors. And so when we teach that, we're going to start off with a nice handful of, you could use his breakfast or dinner kibbles. I'm using treats right now, but you could definitely have him work for his meals as much as possible. I definitely recommend doing that. And so you might have to do that in a separate room from Mabel, I imagine. So I'm going to have food in my hand, in my palm here, and I'm going to see if I can get him sniffing, sniffing, sniffing. He seems to think that I'm going to drop it. There we go. Good. So I'm just going to practice kind of having him take a couple pieces of food out of my hand this way, because he's like, the food is covered with my thumb, and so he's sniffing it and doesn't see it, and he's looking on the ground to see if I dropped it. Good. So let me see if I can get him going, but the idea is that we're going to start to give him a piece of food for every couple of steps that he follows our hand, and it should feel as if our hand was a magnet to his nose. Good. Right there. Perfect. It's right there. Good. Hey, friend. No, thank you. All right, so we're going to see if we can, yay, good. Eventually, we want to see if we can lure him several steps in any direction, left, right, even do like a little circle. We might be too soon to try that yet. So a couple steps. Yeah. So again, with like, yeah, good, perfect. Just like a magnet, if we lose connection with, let's say he's like the little pile of paper clips, good. And our hand is the magnet, right? Remember doing that in school? If we lose connection, it means that we're moving too fast or we're not close enough to the pile of paper clips. So if I lose connection with him, that means I need to go right back to his nose. Good, and start over. And right now I'm just gonna try to capture 1 or 2 steps. And once we get really successful with that, good, now it's coming. Yes, good. Now we can add like 3 or 4 steps, and eventually you can kind of do more than that. But basically, we want to get to the point where we have the ability to whee, just like that. Perfect. That's excellent. So that's going to kind of be part 1 of your homework, is seeing if you can introduce this skill. And then the test, the litmus test, is to see if we can do it in a standing position as well, because he's just a little squirt, right? It's going to require bending. Right, so he can go to the left, he can go to the right, and we want to be able to lunge backwards. Good. And he did all of that. Can you do a little spin move? Excellent. Perfect. So if you can get to that point, that's really great. That's kind of where we want to be with food luring. Oh my gosh. You want more food? Do you have a lot of things to say? So the other thing we're going to do, and I'll send you home with another clicker, because I'm not sure if we sent one home with Mabel or not, but we're going to introduce a clicker. And so with the clicker, we're looking to create a conditioned response. So if I clicked this clicker and he's never heard one before, he's probably not going to have a reaction to it outside of just like, oh, that was a noise. Weird, right? Yeah, unless you've done it with him and then he might be expecting food, right? So the clicker doesn't really mean anything at first. So in order to actually have him have a response to it, we're going to pair it and condition it. So what we're going to do is, again, you can use his breakfast or his dinner. You're going to have, let's say I have his whole bowl of dinner in this pouch. I'm going to take one piece of his food. I'm going to toss it out. I'm going to wait for him to be done chewing that piece. I didn't click fast enough. Let me get my clicker actually ready here. This happens to me a lot. Perfect. All right, so I'm ready with my clicker. I'm going to toss a piece out. I'm going to wait for him to be done chewing that food, which it happened very quickly because he gobbled that right down, right? And then I actually want to, the door. I'm going to present a whole handful of food to him. So someone's at the door, so he's going to be a little bit distracted. If I try to click right here when he's distracted, he most likely will ignore it. It's okay, Rally. Sorry, that was actually pretty good. Rally. Only one dog's barking. So you might want to grab that just in case. Good job, everybody. Moving on. So anyway, if I click, I want to make sure he's done eating that piece of food that I toss out before I click. Because if I do it while he's chewing, he's most likely going to ignore it. And we're going to miss the timing that we need for pairing the sound of the clicker with the presentation of food from me, which is actually what's making him come over to me. So I'll do this a couple times so that makes sense. I'm going to toss a piece out. You didn't quite see where that went. There we go. Good. And it looks like you may have introduced the clicker to him, actually, because I saw a little bit of recognition there. Or he's just insanely smart, right? That could be the case. Ooh, yay, good. Perfect. He's inclined to run over to me when he hears that clicker anyway. So you're really on your way for that being charged, what we call charging the clicker. So conditioning him to the sound of the clicker. That's really helpful, excuse me, because we can use, especially for puppies, it's super handy if you have a conditioned clicker, because we can pair. Good, if I click and he doesn't respond, I'm gonna make kissy sounds and help suck him back over to me. Walking backwards sometimes helps as well. But it's super helpful for puppies because we can pair it with other things like his name, leash pressure, a recall word. We can also pair it with things that happen in the environment, and all of those behaviors will start to take on the same power. So for instance, when we pair it with his name, if he doesn't already have a really good response to his name, let's see. Angus, good. He has a great response to his name already, but we can I'll do this for scientific purposes. Let's see. I'm gonna say eggplant. He's on his way over anyway, because he's like, oh, right, you toss food and then you give me more. Let's see if I can I'm gonna say a random word. I'm gonna say eggplant. Oh, good. I wonder if I could just say anything and his response is gonna be to come over to me to get food, which is great because that's kind of a really good thing to instill in your puppy anyway. But basically what would happen is we would pair, for instance, we could even pair leash pressure with the clicker. So if we're walking and he starts to pull, the moment he puts pressure on his collar, instead of feeling that pressure and continuing to pull into it, if I use my clicker and I do that repetitively and I'm good with my timing, what starts to happen is he goes pressure and then he comes over to me to get food instead of continuing to pull. And then eventually we can fade out the food part of it. But the clicker is really helpful for that as well. So your homework for this really smart guy, and actually I'm gonna go back to luring him into sits and downs while we're at it, but I would introduce that food lure and I would continue, because it seems like you might have already introduced the clicker to him. If not, he's just gonna be really easy to teach that. So work on that. See if you can use his breakfast and dinner and get him kind of working for his meals a little bit. So we're gonna do a food lure into sit, because I haven't quite seen him offer that behavior on his own yet. So what I'm gonna do is, yay, I'm gonna tilt his head, yes, towards the sky, good. Okay. So I'm not sure if that's something that we've struggled to teach him just yet, or if he just was like, I forgot what sit was. But when we teach it, we're using that food lure right to his nose, and I'm going to use my food lure to get his chin up to the sky. And generally when that happens, dogs are inclined to lower their bum. Good. Oh my gosh, that tree. I wish you could have seen what just happened. The treat was like wedged in like his nose crevasse. His little nose crevice, the treat got stuck and he was like cross-eyed for a second. Oh my God. Anyway, his butt's gonna naturally kind of hit the floor when we tilt his head up, and just, we wanna make sure that we release the treat when he's in that sitting position. Good. Did you remember sit? You just forgot it for a second? Good, perfect. And you'll notice that I'm not saying the word sit, and that's because I don't name it till I love it. So until I have him, offering that behavior pretty like, I call it a light bulb moment. He sees me doing this and he goes, boom, and he offers the position, which he's starting to. Good. I want to make sure I don't release that food until that little foot's on the floor. Ideally, good. Okay. And then I'll start to pair the word with the action, because if I start using the word too soon, it doesn't necessarily mess anything up, but it's a lot of repetitions of the dog hearing a word they don't understand and they're just ignoring it essentially. Good. So right there, that was like that light bulb moment that we're talking about. Okay. The other thing you'll hear me saying is okay and good. Those are examples of our markers system. So this is going to be the words and sounds good that we use to communicate with him during training, so that everything's super clear and consistent. And that's really helpful for learning. The more consistent we are, the easier and faster learning is for our dogs. Good is an example of our good reward marker. So that's a word or sound that we're going to use to tell the dog we like what they're doing and that they should keep doing what they're doing. And then when I say the letter O, the letter K, okay, that is an example of what we call a release word. So one of the things that we'll do in this program that's maybe potentially a little bit different is we have what's called an implied stay. Okay, so we want our dogs to perform known commands until they are released. So if I tell my dog, once he learns SIT really well, if I tell him to do that, I expect him to do that no matter what's happening or what I do until he either hears his release word, which could be okay, or if he hears the clicker. So the clicker, that's kind of another function that we use the clicker for, wherever that went, deep in my sleeve. Oh, it's on the floor. So the clicker will also release our dogs from behavior. So if we wanted him to sit and we were done having him sit, we could click and he would come over to us to get food. And we'll talk about the nuances of why we would release him with our release word versus using our clicker to release him from behavior. But that's just kind of food for thought for right now. And there's a lesson on that in the online learning program, which I'm going to email you guys hopefully in the next couple hours. So you guys can kind of read that and get familiar with that. But your homework, food luring, conditioning your clicker, and seeing if we can get that SIT a little bit more solid. Good. I don't know, maybe you were just saying the word. Maybe if I had just said the word, he would have done it. Have you taught down? He might not know that one yet. A little bit, the other thing to consider is his body type. He's got a really nice conformation for a pug. Pugs can sometimes have different body type shapes. And sometimes that makes it, because they're kind of like round almost, it makes it hard to lure them into positions and teach them sits and downs sometimes at first. You have to be a little bit more patient and creative. So with a down, I'm gonna lure him slowly towards the ground with his neck kind of as extended as I can get it. If he pops up into a stand, I'm just gonna reset. So I wanna start him off into a sitting position, and I'm going to kind of slowly lower him to the floor. But if he pops up out of that sit, I'm gonna kind of bring the food away, and the food comes right back to him once he gets back into that sitting position. Boom, right there. Lure him to the floor, and I'm gonna let him nibble, nibble, nibble as he's, and so what happens is while his neck is extended like that, and he learns to keep his bum down to make the food not go away, Good. Lactic acid starts to build up in his body, and he's going to try to bring his arms out into a down position to be more comfortable. So the food kind of disappears for a second when he stops that sitting, and then I might bring it back to him a little bit to help lure him into that sit. Good. Good. I'm going to feed him right there where he popped one arm out. Sometimes you really have to break it really far down. Whoops, I have all kinds of stuff stuck to me. It's the bottom of the barrel with my treat pouch here. And if you're dropping crumbs, that can be a little bit distracting. I might keep a little bit of my hand, not like pushing his butt or anything, but a little bit of counter. Good. I'm going to feed him there where I don't know if you can see it on, he's black, the floor is black, and he's little, but he put an arm out, and that's where I released the food to him and then started over. So sometimes we have to reward small successes and break down the big picture. So his bum came up. I'm going to make the food go away temporarily. Good. Good. Whoop. Good. Whoop. The other technique that might be worth exploring really quick, I'm not sure how long this video is because I have no concept of time, is using what I call the safety gate. What are those? Is that what they're called? Like in a parking garage, you know? So that parking garage thing comes down. I'm going to get him into a sit.
16 minutes.
Oh my gosh, sorry, this is so long. I could have made this into another video, but basically I can keep this down. We want to get him into a sit. Good. That safety, I'm going to catch him underneath my safety gate. He basically has to like crawl under it. So if we want to try to get him to maintain the sitting position. Bring him under my safety gate. Good. There. Oh, almost. He's getting caught up in his collar. So I'm going to try to get him into a sit again. Good. Whoops. And it helps if he's more fluent with SIT. Good. Oh, he's so close. Ah. Oh, good boy. I'll catch him there. So I'm going to put a pin in that. I want to work on getting him more fluent with sit before we move too far down the rabbit hole with down. Plus, I was just informed that this is a very long video now. So we're going to keep working on that with him here, but that gives you an idea of what we're working on and what you can do at home. Good job, Angus.